The current contract between ICANN and NTIA is scheduled to expire at the end of September 30th, 2015. To the extent that all projects of this nature benefit from setting a timeline for a work, that's a good date for the community to use. But we have not set a deadline. If the community needs more time, we can extend the contract past September 2015 for up to 4 years. But we all should understand that before any transition takes place, the businesses, civil society, and technical experts of this community must present a consensus plan that ensures the uninterrupted and stable functioning of the Internet and its present openness.
The German government will advocate that ICANN is not taken over by governments or not taken over by interest groups dependent on ICANN in the future. However, we must make sure that governments will have a say on issues that touch upon political aspects and, most importantly, matters of public interest. We think it would be useful to identify whether governments need more than an advisory role on certain specific issues yet to be defined. These issues might include certain aspects of the introduction of new generic top-level domains like the use of geographical names. In any case, questions regarding a country code top-level domain should remain a question of national sovereignty. Since its establishment in 1998, ICANN as a private organization is playing a key role in the administration of the Internet architecture. So far, it has also been a successful example of the multi-stakeholder approach. The German government considers this multi-stakeholder model to be a key factor for the maintenance of free and open Internet. I'm afraid there's only very little that can be achieved by following the traditional procedures in place of intergovernmental negotiations. UN organizations, for instance, which operate by consensus, are simply not as quick and flexible as the Internet requires. Moreover, now that the communication markets have been liberalized in many countries, it is often private sector companies and the technical community, rather than governments, that have the necessary know-how required to operate the Internet.
We believe in the multi-stakeholder model as a better form to continue strengthening the global Internet governance. And for that reason, Mexico will endorse its commitment to the international community and host IGF 2016, once the mandate is renewed by the United Nations. Today, the security, the resiliency, and the stability of the Internet need to be addressed. We are convinced that a robust environment will provide trust and certainty in favor for the development of the Internet. The transition of the responsibilities of IANA is a big step. And for that reason, we recognize the importance of the decision by the United States government that will benefit the public interest. Mexico will continue collaborating in the effort to build transparent procedures to transit to a commitment with a global community where all the activities must be in benefit of the public interest and not only for commercial or other interest groups. In this sense, we seek for a process that establishes the best mechanisms for transparency and accountability, that provide opportunities for all stakeholders and oversee the correct operation of the IANA functions. Also, as a government stakeholder, we are very concerned about the deadlines of the consultation process, and we kindly request this to be reassessed. Furthermore, the integration of a steering group that would only be comprised of 2 countries, 2 governments, will present a challenge as this may hinder true global representation and may not express all opinions and views of all the GAC members, where social, cultural, economic, and ideological environment is so richly different, and therefore the public policy context they offer. Finally, by underscoring that the Internet governance includes more than the Internet naming and addressing, Mexico is convinced that an appropriate and successful transition is a key element to reach the goals expressed in the Tunis Agenda of the World Summit of the Information Society.
The amount of Internet users outside the US is a factor 10 or more than those in the US. This means that any new oversight mechanism should reflect the global nature of the internet. And the Netherlands has always advocated that the oversight of the ICANN function should be a shared responsibility between private sector and governments all over the world. So we oppose an intergovernmental arrangement. We think any stewardship should be a shared responsibility of all parties affected by the ICANN function, the ones that depend on the ICANN services, and we governments are one of them. Our interest is to maintain a stable internet for our citizens, whether individuals or companies who rely on the internet. And we believe in self-regulation as the preferred model for the internet. This model has led to enormous economical and social benefits worldwide. And we see no reason why this would not work with the oversight of the ICANN functions.
We note that there are many governments that are still not participating in the recent internet governance debates. As we all are aware, there are many countries that participate in other international fora, such as the ITU, but do not participate in ICANN. This is mostly because of the lack of resources and awareness on the part of many of the developing countries. Also, many governments do not see the necessity of participating in the global internet governance discussions. We feel that additional outreach efforts would help in this regard. Thus, we would like to encourage ICANN to explore more customized outreach mechanisms that would induce participation by additional stakeholders. We believe that the new internet governance ecosystem can succeed only when it is achieved through a truly global effort. Second, although we agree in principle to the September 3rd, 2015 timeframe for the completion of ICANN transfer, we feel that we need to give sufficient time during the process to allow the stakeholders to voice their opinions and to try to arrive at a solution based on consensus. Some recent announcements with regard to the ICANN transfer process have not allowed enough time for the stakeholders to engage in discussions. We are aware that we are on a relatively tight schedule, but we would like to ask ICANN to let the process run its due time frame whenever possible. Third, we believe that the role of the GAC within the ICANN structure needed to be enhanced. The Korean government thus recognized that there has been an increasing respect for the voices of the GAC since 2002. But the current non-voting status of the GAC within ICANN is something that needs to be reconsidered. Implementing a more formal mechanism for GAC within ICANN is an issue that should be further explored. Finally, we note that transfer of the ICANN functions cannot be accepted by the global community unless an independent system of checks and balances are put in place.
We fully embrace those criteria, which are, let's say, the ground rules under which we have been working here. So we are comfortable. We don't think that any government should feel challenged by the fact that one of the consensus about this exercise is that this should be multi-stakeholder, not led by one stakeholder, be it government, private sector, or any of the communities, but all parties working together. One very specific thing that emerged from NETMUNDIAL was the call for this transition period, this transition process, to extend beyond what is called the ICANN community. Of course, recognizing the unique role that ICANN has and its associated organizations, supporting organizations and committees in that sense to ensure the effectiveness that we, at the end of the process, we come up with an output that is effective, that enhances the effectiveness, stability, and security. But at the same time, NETMUNDIAL made a call for this to be enlarged. So, and we think it is very important for the output to be seen as legitimate, that it can be embraced by the global community at large. And thinking in terms of government, since this is the high-level governmental meeting, I think this challenge is particularly true in regard to governments. As you are aware, many countries do not participate in the GAC, which could be seen as the ICANN community arm of governments. So we think there is a particular interest in enlarging this exercise and to stimulating participation on the part of other governments.
This is imperative that the security and stability of the DNS will be maintained. Another point we would like to make is that proper accountability must be ensured. Also that the new model for stewardship over the DNS does not jeopardize the national sovereignty over the country code top level domains.
Australia considers that it is important not to replace the US government's largely symbolic role with an unnecessarily burdensome or complex structure going forward. In particular, it is fundamental that the architecture and administration of global cyberspace remains free of government dominance or control. Australia looks forward to participating in close collaboration with all stakeholders on this issue to develop an appropriate model. While the main focus must be on ensuring there are appropriate accountability and transparency arrangements for ICANN and IANA, which are robust and sustainable and able to develop and evolve over time, it is critical that progress keeps to a schedule and that we do not miss this unique opportunity. Thank you.
For Denmark, we attach very much weight on the multi-stakeholder model in ICANN, but we still think it can be strengthened and refined. It's a key priority for us to secure an effective accountability mechanism and also check and balancing and redress mechanism.
The 2 points I really wanted to emphasize, having listened in particular to the delegate from Korea, is time on the one hand, and the other point is outreach. I think the oversight over IANA is of such fundamental importance for the functioning of the internet that we should craft the process and the actual outcome very carefully, of course in an inclusive way, as I think everybody has stated, but we should take time. I'm a little bit torn between maybe the French saying, donnez le temps au temps, give the time to the time. That may sound a little bit too cozy for some. And on the other hand, if you are a keener contributor to the process, you may want to see a sense of urgency. And I think what we ultimately need is probably a realistic sense of urgency, if I may call it that way. And the last point is the outreach. I think it is crucial that the debate over this transition goes beyond the ICANN community that we are here and today, and that we also discuss this process in other fora, in particular the Internet Governance Forum.
And I've just noted, and we need real mechanisms of accountability and transparency in Internet governance. In terms of the policy instruments, they have to primarily consider the beneficiaries and respect the rights and liberties. These challenges dictate that we need to improve confidence in the governance of the Internet on the part of all stakeholders and their respective roles. We believe that it is necessary to have several steps, such as to divide the critical functions in Internet management, to define the universal policies in terms of unique Internet identifiers. We also need to consider separately the administrative functions in terms of the accreditation of Internet registries, etc., and the functions in terms of the allocation of critical resources in the Internet, and to control that these units follow the established policies. In terms of the technical functions, we need to look into IANA functions, root zone, the support of the root zone, and others. At the same time, we need to ensure mechanisms of accountability in all of these functions, including external surveillance and audit. And all of these suggestions have been put forward by experts, and I have a question to Minister Strickling. Why is it that we're not trying to build a model, a clear model, where these functions would be separated in terms of the separating of the critical resources in internet governance?
We agree with the view that envisioned model should be purely intergovernment or government-only led. Egypt reiterates of having an open, inclusive, transparent, and bottom-up process to develop the transition plan that is multi-stakeholder throughout all stages. We believe it is important to make sure that the process extends beyond the ICANN community and reaches out to internet communities, especially in developing countries. Further, it should be made clear how the process will take into account input provided through other fora generally. The community should have the chance to see and review the final draft before being announced. Furthermore, we think there is a need for more clarity on the evaluation of the envisaged proposal, and also to add more members for the GAG representatives in the coordination committee.
We are looking to this new management model that will preserve the core critical function of the internet, which should be global, transparent, multi-stakeholders, and free of control from a single government or a business entity. Regardless of the sector we come from, whether it's a government, technical, social, and academic, we should all work together, not only to maintain the current state of the internet, but also to move forward to keep the internet as open, secure, and there should be no invasion of privacy for all users.